Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this meeting of the Washington County Board of Education. I call this meeting to order. We have all members present. We do have a quorum. At this time, Board Member Linda Murray will be leading us in the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. This time we'll have approval of this evening's agenda. Is there a motion? Thank you, Mr. Bickford. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Dr. Zentmeyer. Do you have any questions or discussion about the agenda? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor of approval? All right. 7 affirmative votes. We have an approved agenda. And approval of the minutes.
Mrs. Williams, I make a motion for the approval of the business minutes dated Wednesday, June 22nd, 2022. June 22nd, 2022.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Dr. Zentmeyer. Are there any additions or corrections to the business meeting minutes of July 22nd, 2022? All those in favor of approval? All right, 7 affirmative.
I have a second motion for the approval of the closed session minutes dated Tuesday, July 19th, 2022.
Ms. Bird? Is there a second? Second. Thank you, Dr. Zentmeyer. So we have up for vote the approval of the closed session minutes of July 19th, 2022. All those in favor of approval? Okay, Mr. Bickford, you're abstaining?
Yes.
So we have 6 affirmative, 1 abstention.
And my last motion is for the approval of the business meeting, same date, Tuesday, July 19th, 2022.
Thank you. Mr. Gessler? Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Dr. Zentmeyer. Any additions or corrections to the business meeting minutes of July 19th, 2022? All those in favor of approval? All right, we have 6 affirmative. Mr. Bickford?
Abstain.
Thank you. So we have all 3 sets of minutes approved. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Gessler.
You're welcome.
Okay, this is the portion of our meeting where we have public comment. I have no one who has signed up in advance. However, policy does allow for individuals who have not signed up prior to the meeting to speak. Is there anyone that would like to speak this evening? Good evening, Mr. Lowen. Can we disperse with the reading of the policy? I know you're well versed being a frequent visitor, so thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
So this evening, I wanted to speak about the family life curriculum with school starting in 27 days. And the family life curriculum is a concern because really there's a bit that we know about it, but it is something where it is going to be, you created the committee about 12 weeks ago, 3 months ago, and based on the model curriculum that has been put out is that it is going to be every year from kindergarten up through 12th grade. It's going to be year long. But it's not really, has really almost nothing to do with family. What it is about, it is a gender equity training program. And that is the concern because what we know about the gender equity trainings is not very positive. You know, one way that it shows up that people are generally familiar with is the idea of the gender pronouns. You know, so you have the, you know, men and women don't necessarily want to be called he or she, so they'll be called they or them. And that's a result of gender equity training. But what really kind of explains what gender equity means the most is what occurred 4 weeks ago with the National Teachers Union, when at their annual convention, they had a proposal that they were going to remove the words mom and mother from all of their documents in order to replace it with the phrase birthing parent. And the reason, as it read in their proposal, was because the word birthing parent is inclusive of the LGBTQ community. But really, if you think about what they're saying, is they're saying that because, you know, women, where the act of motherhood is perhaps the deepest of all human experiences, they're saying that because men cannot control their biology, that it is the responsibility of women to essentially be stripped of the idea of motherhood, to have the idea of motherhood be taken out of the public record, so that men can feel like they can be included in whatever is left over. And that's really a very intense and a very almost cruel thing to do. But that really captures the essence of what you see when you look around, because that kind of an idea is going to be dangerous. And we see it in school districts around our own school district, and that's the concern, is that, you know, there's a school district, 30 miles from us, where just last week they told their teachers that if the teacher calls a parent and says, you know, you have a son who's going around saying that he's a girl, that teacher can be fired. That's the official policy of the school district. Another school district, I believe it's more like 45 miles from us, but last year, and this was in the news, last year the child said, well, I feel like a girl. They're like, okay, well, go use the girls' bathroom. And he ended up raping a student, a girl. And then they lied about it, moved him to a different school. He ended up raping another girl. And of course that's going to be the case, because if you believe that you cannot discuss what gender means versus how someone feels about themselves, then you obviously are setting up a situation where you're forcing yourself to have to lie and then put in danger half of the student body. And really, at some point, you got to just ask yourself, well, who does this to themselves? Who subjects themselves to this? Who subjects children to this? And what it is that lots of people are asking that. You know, last year when we handed the national female swimming title to a guy because he said he didn't agree with his DNA. After that, the world's global body for the governing body for the sport of swimming got together, and they made a rule, of course, that men cannot participate in women's swimming events. But if you really think what happened, what they did is representatives from countries all over the world came together and said, you know, in order to protect the spirit of competition and equality, we actually have to protect the world of sports from being influenced by America. That's what was happening. And that's happening everywhere. There's a growing list of world leaders that are on record saying what is occurring in America. And so what this board needs to recognize is that all gender equity training really is taking children while they are still too young to have recognized, to have developed the tools, to have developed the perspective to think independently, and you are forcing them to accept someone else's worldview. And that is something that this board needs to reject out of hand. And the fact that here we are just a few weeks away, when you know what the curriculum is, and you haven't said a word, raises alarm bells. So you have to be open and honest. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Lowen. Is there anyone else who'd like to come forward to speak? Okay, board member response to public comment. Colleagues, anyone wishing to speak? You have 3 minutes. No?
Something?
Sure.
I have a question about that. I know we had a family life committee that came together and looked at the program, and did we not have parents be able to comment on this? Did we get feedback? I'm just trying to refresh my memory.
I don't have all the information, but yes, we did have a committee, I believe, and I'm sure that they did accept parent comment, but I don't have all of the particulars. Dr. Solai?
President Williams, if I may, I'd like to yield to staff that can come forward and provide additional details. Dr. Wilcox, our Executive Director of Secondary Education, is coming forward to address the matter.
Good evening, Board President Williams and members of the board. There was a board committee that did meet that Dr. Willow and then the liaison, Eric Michael, met with a group of parents over a course of, if I recall, 3 weeks. Their presentations, their agendas, and their draft minutes were posted on the website. That information was shared there. In addition, then, I think it was shared in CNI. I don't think it has gone any further than that at this point.
Thank you, Dr. Wilcox.
Thank you.
Do you have any other questions?
Just wanted to ask. I thought it was.
Okay. If there are no further board member comments, then we'll move to old business. And our first action item under old business is the second reading of proposed changes to policy JCA, the establishment of school attendance areas.
Good evening, President Williams, Dr. Sabine, members of the board. The Board of Education approved the first reading of proposed changes to policy JCA as recommended by the Policy Committee at its public business meeting on July 19, 2022. Following the approval of the first reading, the committee placed a public notice on board docs and the school system's website seeking comments on the proposed changes. The committee has not received any comments at this time. The committee is now recommending the Board of Education approve the second reading of proposed changes to policy JCA.
Thank you, Mrs. Ram. Is there a motion?
Madam President, I move to approve the second reading of proposed changes to policy JCA entitled Establishment of School Attendance Areas.
Thank you, Mr. Bickford. Is there a second? Second. Thank you, Mr. Stauffer. Any discussion or any questions? Mr. Bickford, as Policy Committee Chair, was there anything that you wanted to say about this particular policy before we move to the vote?
No, I think we're good to vote.
Okay. All righty, we're voting to approve the second reading of proposed changes to policy JCA entitled Establishment of School Attendance Areas. All those in favor? All righty, we have 7 affirmatives, so we have approval of that second reading. That brings us to new business. And our first item under new business this evening is the consent agenda, and we have Mr. Scott Bakewell, Supervisor of Purchasing, here to present. Good evening.
Good evening, President Williams, members of the board, Dr. Savine. Tonight, I have 2 items for your review. These items were reviewed by our Purchasing Review Committee and are being recommended for approval, and staff is available if you have any additional questions.
Thank you, Mr. Bakewell. Is there a motion?
Madam President, I move to approve renewals for both the Library Management System Software and Follett Destiny Resource Manager to Follett Corporation at a total cost of $78,241.30, and professional design services for roof replacements at multiple schools to Bushy Fight Moore and Architects, Inc. at a cost of $122,371.
Is there a second? Thank you, Dr. Sedmeyer. Any questions for Mr. Bakewell or any discussion?
Yeah, I have a couple questions. So my first question about the roof design, that quote that we got there is very significantly lower than the rest of the quotes we got. Is there something that we're missing here, or they're missing, or are they just trying to price gouge in the current market?
So Bushy does a lot of our roofs for us, and they're very competitive, and they win a lot. I think the other firms that submitted price proposals, Bushy is right in Hagerstown, the other ones are down the road, so I think they just have an advantage of, they've done it for us multiple times. The price per roof, breaking it out, that $35,000 to $45,000 range is typically kind of where we are in roof design. So we asked the same questions in the PRC meeting, and that was kind of, I know facilities, Rob said he was comfortable with Bushy, so.
I mean, yeah, I know
Right.
they do a lot of work, so they do a good job. I just found that odd. So.
Yeah, it is significantly less.
Then a couple questions about the Follett software here. I saw one, they're not including the taxes, so we quoted at $78,000, so we could probably add another $4,500 to that maybe, or is there no tax on this?
So, yeah, we're tax exempt.
Okay, so we don't, okay. And then, two more questions. So why is there no comparative quote? And two, I know we've heard a lot of, complaints about some of the books in the libraries, and, we're able to find the books using Follett, which I do really appreciate that. I think that's a good way for transparency so people can see what books are in the libraries. But how much of a role do they play in what goes into the libraries as well? And maybe that's more of a different type of topic, but I don't know if you could answer that.
So the two, we utilized two bids for the two different kind of components of this. One was a Baltimore County Public Schools bid that they did, I don't remember the exact time, but in the last few years. And so we ride that bid and utilize that bid for the library resource, or I'm sorry, library management part. And then Buy Board has a bid that we utilize for the technology part of it. So those bids were publicly vetted, and we're just kind of utilizing those. And we've utilized the one system since 2014 and the other one since 2019. So if we wanted to do kind of a wholesale change, I know in 2019 they went through and looked at 4 or 5 different systems to track the resources that we, the student resources and the things that technology tracks utilizing that.
Right.
So they were both publicly vetted bids. We didn't do our own, essentially.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Kessler?
Well, I'll piggyback on that. The procurement amount, does that change every time we renew it? Or is it just the same as we renew it for the same amount?
You mean year over year?
Yeah. So, do you remember what it was the last time?
I don't remember what it was the last time, no.
It'd be real interesting to see what the increase.
I can surely find that out and let you know.
If the superintendent wouldn't mind, I'd like to see that. Thank you.
Yes.
I want to say something, and it goes back to Daryl's question, Mr. Williams' question, or Evans. And Dr. Zentmeyer will add you into this too. Didn't we talk in C&I, curriculum and instruction, about the vetting process using Follett, and here we go.
But Destiny is more than just the book selection process, and the lady who knows all of the answers is here.
There we go.
Good evening, Dr. Sovine, President Williams, and members of the board. I believe what we're talking about here is more of the professional reviews that are within Destiny. So fortunately for our library media specialists, the reviews are all curated within Destiny. However, that does not mean that they're provided by Destiny. We use professional resources such as Kirkus and School Library Journal, and those are all curated there so that they're not going into all of these separate places looking for the reviews of the books. Does that answer your question? Okay.
Plus, I think there was additional staff development done this summer with the media specialists throughout the county.
Yes, we are doing that. And then we have our Supervisor-Led Professional Development Day coming up in August, later this month. And we're spending quite a bit of the day talking about how we select our materials and what the different factors are that we look at, including the school community and different, for example, like the IB program, they're selecting books based on their school community and things like that. So we'll be doing that later this month.
Thank you.
So Jeff, Mr. Peru provided, it was a little over $74,000 we paid for last year, so about a 5% increase on the Follett, the
How much
entire
was it?
package.
What was it last time?
A little over 74,000.
Okay.
Any other questions? All right. Seeing none, we'll move to the vote. We're voting on Mr. Bickford's motion, Dr. Zentmeyer's second on this evening's consent agenda. All those in favor of approval? All right, thank you. We have 7 affirmative votes, so we have an approved consent agenda. Thank you, Mr. Mapel.
Thank you.
Our second action item under new business is the first reading of proposed changes to policy BD, types and notifications of meetings.
Good evening again. The Policy Committee reviewed Policy BD at its public work session on July 14, 2022. The committee recommended several minor changes to the policy, none of which changed the intent of the policy. The committee is recommending the Board of Education approve the first reading of proposed changes to Policy BD. And if I may add, the details the board specifically would be looking for would be in a regulation.
Thank you, Mrs. Ram. Is there a motion?
Madam President, I move to approve the first reading of proposed changes to Policy BD entitled Types and Notification of Meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Bickford. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Murray.
That's where I got it.
Questions or any discussion? No? We'll move to the vote. We're voting to approve the first reading of proposed changes to Policy BD entitled Types and Notification of Meeting. All in favor? All right, we have 7 affirmative votes. Motion carries, and we have an approved first reading. Okay, our next action item is the first reading of proposed changes to Policy Jhcd, Administering Medicines to Children.
The Policy Committee reviewed Policy Jhcd as part of its review of Section J of the Board of Education's Policy Manual at its public work sessions on June 15th and July 14th, 2022. The committee is recommending changes to the policy that align the policy with current practice. Current practice allows for medications to be administered to students during school hours, which is addressed under the current policy. However, the current practice also permits the administration of medications during school-sponsored activities. The committee is recommending language be placed in the policy permitting administration of medications during school-sponsored activities so that the policy and current practice align. The committee also placed the policy in the correct format. The committee is recommending the Board of Education approve the first reading of proposed changes to Policy Jhcd.
Thank you, Mrs. Ram. Is there a motion?
Madam President, I move to approve the first reading of proposed changes to Policy Jhcd entitled Administering Medicines to Students.
Thank you, Mr. Bickford. Is there a second? Thank you, Mr. Stauffer. Any questions or any discussion? No? Then we'll move to the vote. We're voting to approve the first reading of proposed changes to Policy Jhcd entitled Administering Medicines to Students. All those in favor? Okay, we have 7 affirmative. Motion carries. We have an approved first reading. Our next action item is another first reading. This is the first reading of proposed changes to Policy AC, Non-Discrimination Statement.
Bear with me a moment. My board book is missing the cover sheet, so I will wing it.
Would you like to borrow mine?
Hold it up and you see it.
Nope, you're missing the back as well.
Here, I have them back.
Nope, you're missing the back as well.
We're all missing the
We're
back.
all missing the
Issue
back.
in the copying.
I don't have one.
There we go. All right, thank you, Debbie. Legislation was passed during the 2022 Maryland General Assembly session requiring the Policy Committee to review Policy AC at its public work session on July 14th, 2022. House Bill 850, which was enacted during the legislative session, prohibits boards of education from discriminating against an individual because of their ethnicity and from retaliating against an individual who files a complaint of discrimination. The committee is proposing changes to Policy AC that address both of these new provisions as required by law. In addition, the committee is proposing Policy AC to be updated to prohibit the Board of Education from discriminating against an individual because of their socioeconomic status. The committee is recommending the Board of Education approve the first reading of proposed changes to policy AC.
Thank you, Mrs. Ram. Is there a motion?
Madam President, I move to approve the first reading of proposed changes to policy AC entitled Non-Discrimination Statement.
Thank you, Mr. Bickford. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Murray. Any questions? Any discussion?
Mrs. Williams?
Mr. Gessler?
Just to clarify, the board members did receive the actual policy, so if the public thinks we did not, we did get the policy. It was just that little verbiage that you say, so I don't want people like, well, what are they voting on? They didn't have the information. We did have it.
You're wing it. 'Cause it was like an initiation, you know? but-
I've done that in a lot of cases, and I probably
You
could
could've
have,
done
maybe
it,
not
yeah.
as fluidly, but there've been a few more ums.
So I do have a question. I noticed that we, and this kind of piggybacks off what the public comment was, we took out the word he or she and replaced it with them, their, whatever. And that's fine. I mean, that quite honestly just makes more sense for me to say it that way anyway. My concern is with Title IX and sports, and again, kind of what that came up with. I know that's a touchy topic these days, and I just want to make sure that we're, one, following what we're supposed to be following as far as what the law goes, and two, we're allowing women to have their sports as well.
Right. This policy doesn't piggyback into the latter point of your question and comment there. The reason for the change is the policy calls for the fact that we can't discriminate based upon gender, identity, and expression. And with current trends in the law, that would indicate that we shouldn't make an individual choose he or she. And so from a fluidity and easy to understand, rather than have he, she, they, and make it longer, they encompasses both he and she. Changing that to they does not impact the concerns about women in female sports.
That's what I was thinking. I just wanted to make sure. Thank you.
And this statement is required by law to be,
Correct,
must need it by state law.
correct.
It's been a while since the meeting. We added on the socioeconomic, though, correct? Because we
Correct.
wanted to reflect the fact that we should not discriminate against people based on their socioeconomic status.
That's correct. The law does not require it. However, if you think about the socioeconomic diversity within our county, if we're protecting other classes, we have an interest in students and staff to protect that class as well.
Are we ready to move to the vote? We're voting to approve the first reading of proposed changes to policy AC entitled Non-Discrimination Statements. All those in favor? All right, we have 7 affirmative. Motion carries. We have an approved first reading.
Madam President, I did want to thank our legal staff because there is a lot of reading to do when it comes to non-discrimination policies and our laws, and they went through all of it, so thank you.
Thank you. And Dr. Savine, we will move to the superintendent's report.
Yes, President Williams, members of the board, it's my pleasure to introduce Dr. Wilcox, Executive Director of Secondary Education. And joining Dr. Wilcox is Mrs. Margovich, who's Supervisor of Testing and Accountability. They will provide an update on AP and IB results for the 2021-22 school year.
Thank you. President Williams, Dr. Zavine, members of the board, I'm pleased to present the student achievement for IB and AP. The first graphic shows a 5-year history of the number of takers, the number of exams, the number of scores 3 and higher, and the course enrollment for AP exams. We had 1,061 students participate in AP testing this year. Those students took 1,772 exams. Of those exams, 948 were passing scores, 3 and above. That equates to a 53.5% pass rate. We compare that to our end of course enrollment of 2,057 students in AP courses. We also look at the distribution of scores, with 3, 4, and 5 being passing scores. This year, 17.8% of the exams scored at a level 1, 28.7% of the exams scored at a level 2, 28.8 scored at a level 3, 17.0 scored at a level 4, and 7.6 scored at a level 5. This is an increase over the number of passing scores from last year and is similar to those in the pre-pandemic years.
We want to take a moment to look at some of our accomplishments for our advanced placement test for this past school year. So Clear Spring High School, for their macroeconomics pass rate was 83.3%, which is a 10-year high. At Smithsburg High School, World History had a pass rate of 81.8%, which is also a 10-year high, and also English Literature had a pass rate of 100% for a 10-year high. Looking at some overall school data, Clear Spring High had a 10-year high pass rate of 59.4% overall. South Hagerstown High School had an overall pass rate of 55.9, which is a 10-year high. And Barbara Ingram School for the Arts had the highest Washington County pass rate at 73.4%. And then North Hagerstown High School had the highest number of exams given, which was 327.
Moving to International Baccalaureate, which is offered at North Hagerstown High School. We had 109 students participate in exams for IB. These students took 289 exams this year. 221 of these exams scored a passing grade of 4 or above. That's a 76.5% pass rate. And we had 557 students enrolled in IB courses at North High. Again, we look at the last 5 years in terms of score distribution. 0.3% of our students got a 1. 2.8% of the exams scored at a level 2. 20.4 scored at a level 3. For IB, it is 4 and above that is passing. So 24.9% of our students got 4s on their exams. 30.1 got a 5. 17.0 of the exams had 6 as the score, and 4.5% scored a 7. And again, this is an increase from the pre-pandemic levels. With these students, we do have a lot of students who participate in both AP and IB. We had 1,002 students who took AP exams only. We had 50 students who took IB exams only. And we had 59 students who took both AP and IB exams. We're happy to take any questions that you have on these data.
The question is just the difference between 2020 and 21 and 22, that being 2020 being the height. Is that just, do you think that was COVID had an impact, or was it population, or?
COVID definitely had an impact. The design of the assessment changed radically in 2020. They made it shorter because they did have to transition to a remote option. So all of the students were tested remotely that year. So it was a dramatically different exam than students took in 21 or before.
So they've since gone back to having to go
Correct.
proctored in person?
Correct.
Got it, okay. That's interesting. And then my only other question, I think I ask this every year, but if students have issues paying for these tests, there's funds available to
So
cover
Washington
costs?
County pays for half of all student exams. So every student is allowed to have half of their exam covered by the county. If a student qualifies for any career-reduced meals, we would pay for the entire exam. Or also, if they have any type of economic hardship, we would also cover the cost of the exam, so that cost is not a barrier.
Dr. Wilcox, I'd like to put you on the spot, if I may.
Sure.
What would you like us to take away from this evening, from this data, both on IB and AP programs? What would you like us as board members to take away from this?
I think our takeaway is that we're beginning to return back to some pre-pandemic levels in our data. We know that we pulled a course enrollment for the number of students, and we're over right now 3,000 for our course enrollment. We had 2,000 students enrolled in our courses for AP, for example, last year. So our numbers are up, are rebounding past where we were pre-pandemic. So I think what we take away from this is that our teachers and students have made growth, returning back to full in-person and pushing through all of the challenges that we've had in the last 2 to 3 years to be able to return data that's coming back that's close to pre-pandemic. And in some cases, as we noted today, all-time highs or 10-year highs for those particular schools.
Very notable accomplishments. Thank you, Dr. Wilcox. Mr. Staff?
I'd just like to say that I think, and probably some other people do too, that these AP exams are more difficult than regular college exams in the same course, because a lot of times they're year-long and so forth. But I can remember teaching AP American History, and the students would always say, what do you think the essay questions are going to be? And some years we were able to guess, you're going to get an essay question on this. But I can remember one year when there was a question that I talked to some other teachers. I can't remember exactly. It was something about women's rights or something, but I can't remember how it was phrased or whatever. And nobody guessed that that was going to be one of the essay questions. But it can be tough to do it. But these courses are tougher than regular college courses.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
President Williams, I just want to express my appreciation to our leadership team for their work with AP and IB, and certainly all of our teachers and school leaders. But I do want to continue with this month's report. It's important, I believe, to note just how hard staff work during the summer preparing for the upcoming school year. At the last board meeting in July, I highlighted the summer school enrollment at that time. However, summer school is not the only thing our staff is working on during the summer. This summer, Washington County Public Schools staff has offered or will offer 133 professional learning workshops. I'm proud to share that we have 1,474 participants in our summer learning sessions this summer. In addition, we have 1,200 staff members signed up to participate in the Summer Summit during the week of August the 15th. I want to thank all of our facilitators for leading the professional learning activities this summer, as well as those who have participated. This will certainly positively impact student learning during the 2022-23 school year and beyond. Also like to mention that principals, assistant principals, and central office administrators will attend our annual two-day Leadership Council on August the 3rd and 4th at Williamsport High School. The Leadership Council is facilitated by our executive directors of elementary and secondary education in collaboration with the Division of Curriculum and other operational departments to prepare school administrators with updates for a successful new school year. Administrators at the elementary level will spend time refining school improvement plans focused on helping students to achieve success academically, socially, and emotionally. Secondary administrators will be engaging in collaborative planning process to support student and staff growth and achievement. Central office staff will share updates on the following areas: curriculum and instruction, school safety, human resources, special education, technology, student services, counseling, health updates, and presentations from the Department of Juvenile Services and Department of Social Services. The Teacher Induction Academy begins on August the 9th. We expect to have approximately 160 teachers join us at Williamsport High School. This number includes teachers who were late hires during the 2021-22 school year and all new teachers to Washington County in the 2022-23 school year. At the Teacher Induction Academy, teachers will have the opportunity to learn more about Washington County essential curriculum. In addition, sessions are planned with human resources and safety and security. This year, the Chamber of Commerce and Greater Hagerstown will be present with community partners to welcome and provide new employees with information about Washington County. Teachers will also receive additional time in their classroom to prepare for the 2022-23 school year. I want to thank all of our administrators who have helped plan our Teacher Induction Academy. Certainly a very important service in terms of supporting those that are new to our county. Lastly, I'm pleased to share that had my first listening session at Clear Spring High School last night. I enjoyed interacting with the Clear Spring community, and I look forward to engaging with the Williamsport community tomorrow night. I'm seeking the community's input into the school system's strengths as well as areas of growth. I feel that receiving this feedback from community members, parents, staff, and students will be vital to my success as a superintendent. I invite you to stop out to one of the 6 listening sessions during the month of August. Madam Chair, members of the board, that concludes my report. I remain available for any board member questions.
Thank you. Superintendent, any questions?
I do have a question. Last month, and first of all, thank you for that update. That was, I know our staff does work very hard, so there's a lot of hard work behind the scenes to make sure we get that successful school year. So thank you and staff for making that happen. But 2 weeks ago at the meeting, we approved the redesign for the website, and I know Mr. Gesford asked for the sake of better transparency, a little easier access to these board meetings, Mr. Gesford asked to have the meetings displayed, linked to it, displayed on the front page there. With everything going on in our curriculum concerns these days, a very large portion of that is out of our hands, and the state has curriculum that is listed as either opt-in or opt-out. Is there a way to, on the homepage of the new website, which I think Mr. Prue said probably, hopefully December or January, we'll be able to see that up and running. Is there a way to be able to get on that page a list of all the curriculum that the state lists as either opt-in or opt-out, when it's expected, obviously a general idea of when it's expected to be taught, and a link to the state webpage to have the parents be able to see that, so that we don't have to worry about the concerns where, the parents might not be able to get an email like they got last year, or, they just didn't quite understand. This gives them the ability to see it. Is that something we could do?
Certainly, it is something that I'm more than willing to work with staff to review and see if that is possible. I'll be working with our communications team to explore that, and be glad to provide the board with an update.
Excellent, thank you.
Sure.
Any other questions? Mr. Gesser?
Thank you. Dr. Sabine, I have some concerns with, last year, you weren't here, so hopefully you'll be filled in, but we had a lot of disciplinary issues at some of our schools, mainly one being South High. Had some very big concerns with attacks on our police, our SOLs, SOOs, and I know that you being kind of coming in here at the beginning of the school year, you may not know all of what had happened, but we have an issue within our schools with a discipline issue, and I want to know what we're going to be doing to address those concerns. And I'm not asking you answer tonight because this is kind of new. You've not heard this, but parents are concerned across, in all the schools. But if I was a parent at South High, I'd be very concerned that we have individuals that probably shouldn't be at school. We have to keep them in school by law, I believe it is. And how are we going to protect our teachers, our staff, our other students from individuals that don't want to be there and cause disruption throughout the day? Is there a plan of action that we have thought about, maybe meet with your staff to find out what we're doing to address those concerns for this coming year so that we don't have the same results as we did last year? One of the big concerns of all of our board members here is the safety of our students. We've been working year after year to keep all of our students safe and our staff. We've put millions and millions of dollars into all of our schools, vestibules, safety vestibules, keeping our students safe once they're inside. Safety is a huge address for all of our members here. We've worked together many years to keep all of our students safe. And we want to make sure that we continue that because that is something that we all pride ourselves on in Washington County. When a lot of the school systems throughout the state weren't providing those safety vestibules for their schools, Washington County was probably maybe Mr. Prue can kind of tell me, I think we may have been the only school system that was investing our money into those schools to keep our students safe, because that is priority one for me. And I want to make sure that we don't go into the next school year not addressing those concerns that we had before, so that we can say that we're continuing to do everything we can to keep our students safe. So I'd like you to maybe address that in another time so you can have some time to review that and kind of report back to the board.
Williams, if I may, certainly I appreciate the comments regarding school safety and security. I know this is something that this board takes seriously, as well as the superintendent and staff. I will be glad to come back and to report in additional detail, but I will share with you, you referenced South High, and I know some of our board members as well as staff this summer and attended a community session where they were receiving feedback, and our team certainly been working proactively to address and mitigate those safety issues. In particular, I can't say enough about the leadership team at South High. I, along with several of our team members, visited about a month or so ago. There are plans working with our Executive Director of Secondary Instruction to proactively address some of the problem areas that existed in the school. And I'm glad you mentioned the safety and security vestibules that this board and previous administration invested in, which certainly is a safety feature that not all localities have in place in all the schools across the county. So without a doubt, safety and security is a priority, and I will work with our team to provide an update at an upcoming meeting as well.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Dr. Sovine? No? Okay. Dr. Sovine, are we ready to move to personnel action? All right.
Thank you.
Mrs. Rams coming forward. She's going to do this portion.
Good evening. As discussed in closed session, I respectfully request the board to approve the employee changes.
Thank you, Mrs. Ram. Is there a motion?
I move to approve the personnel actions dated Tuesday, July 19th, 2022, as presented in the closed session.
Mrs. Murray, is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Dr. Zentmeyer. right, any questions before we move to the vote? We're voting to approve personnel actions dated July 19th as presented in closed session today. All those in favor? Is that the right date, July 19th? That's what I have here for the motion. I was thinking,
August.
it says July 19th. I just read what it
And I
said
just
here,
read
and then
it
I'm
too.
thinking, that doesn't seem quite right.
No,
That was the motion as well, correct?
Right, it'd be the
Let's
personal
change the
actions dated
motion.
today. That's
All right,
correct.
shall we?
We'll approve that one again.
That's right, we have approved that one, so let's try this again.
August 2nd, correct?
August 2nd.
All right. President Williams, I move to approve the personnel actions dated Tuesday, August 2nd, 2022, as presented in the closed session.
Thank you, Mrs. Murray. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Dr. Zetmeyer. Are there any questions before we move to the vote? Okay, we're voting to approve the personnel actions dated today, August 2nd, 2022. All those in favor? All right, so we have 7 affirmatives, and we do have the approved personnel actions. Thank you, Mrs. Ram.
President Williams,
Yes, sir.
if I may, just to add to the personnel actions and approval of this board, it's my honor to announce a new principal, Rockland Woods Elementary School, as one of our own. Scott Wilderson, who was previously assistant principal at Salem Avenue Elementary School. Also, Mr. Wilderson, prior to serving as an assistant principal, was a teacher for us at Emma K. Daub, and at multiple levels, first grade, second grade, fourth and fifth grade, has just an exceptional, strong background in instruction, and we know that he's going to serve the Rockland Wood Elementary School community very well.
Thank you, Dr. Savai, and congratulations to our new principal. Okay, at this time we'll have reports to the board, and we will begin with the Curriculum Instruction Committee. Dr. Zetmeyer?
We haven't met since the last board meeting, but we will meet August 23rd at 10:30 a.m.
Thank you. Facilities, Mr. Gesford.
Nothing, I reported the last meeting.
Mr. Evans, Finance Committee?
Nothing new since the last meeting.
Thank you. Human Resources, Mrs. Murray?
We did not meet last month because I couldn't meet. I was in COVID quarantine. And so we set up a new time, but now I found out today that it's conflicting with some other meetings. So we have to regroup, and I'll let you know when we decide that.
All right, thank you. Policy Review and Development Committee, Mr. Bickford?
Policy meets next Tuesday at 2 p.m.
That's the 9th.
Yeah, August 9th, sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Bickford. Okay, that brings us to miscellaneous business, and we have one item of business to conduct, and this is the appointment of the Washington County Board of Education's representatives to the Maryland Association of Boards of Education's Legal Services Association. So we are looking to appoint Mrs. Patricia Ersprung as the representative from Washington County's board, and Dr. April Zetmeyer as the alternate. Is there a motion?
President Williams, I move to approve the appointment of the nominated individuals to serve as Washington County Board of Education's representatives on the Maryland Association of Boards of Education's Legal Services Association.
Thank you, Mr. Evans. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Stauffer. So again, Mrs. Ersprung will be the representative. Dr. Zetmeyer will be the alternate. All those in favor of?
Can we have this question?
Oh, yeah, certainly.
Okay. Since you're on the board of directors of May, would you like to tell the public and everyone listening what this group does, this legal, Boards of Education Legal Services Association?
Well, I could do that, but Mrs. Ram, are you available to?
I didn't mean to put you on the spot, but I think people would like to know.
Too late.
Too late. The board, the LSA meets, the representatives meet once a month, and they discuss matters of interest and review court findings.
Upcoming legislation.
Upcoming.
Not so much legislation, but more findings from the courts.
Well, and upcoming legislation that would impact changes to the law. I mean, that sounds redundant, but as it impacts schools.
Right.
So anything, sort of a watch list, not the same as their legislative summary, but it's all the legal services, the areas of law, policy changes. They discuss if there's changes of law that would impact board policies when those come down to make those changes. That's my understanding. Ms. Ersprung attends, I do not.
Having been to a few of those Zoom meetings, that's correct.
Does that satisfy your question?
Yes,
Okay.
thank you.
Thank you for putting me on the spot.
I didn't mean to do that, but
That's all right. That's all right. You as well, thank you. Trickle down. All right, so we're again about to vote on approving the appointment of Mrs. Ersprung as our representative to MAPES LSA and Dr. Zentmeyer as the alternate. All those in favor? Okay,
you may
thank you.
get me back at some point in the
I
future.
would never do that. I would never do that. That's not my style.
So you say.
All right. Our second item under miscellaneous business is our list of future agenda items. And let me flip my paper over. We have 9 items on our list. I would just like to remind you, on August 16th, in addition to our regularly scheduled closed session and business meeting, we have a board work session where we will be discussing our current board norms and board communication processes. As part of our business meeting, there will be a presentation on the financial literacy program. Excuse me. Our budget cycle is beginning. It's hard to believe. It just seems like we did that a day or two ago. We began that process. But September 6th, we'll be looking at the general fund operating budget calendar and begin planning for our budget cycle. We'll be looking at the capital improvement plan on September 6th, and we will have staff updating us with regard to our apprenticeship programs that we have going on. So there's also discipline and suspension report coming up in September at our second meeting in September. And then in October, we'll be looking at our comprehensive maintenance plan. And Dr. Willow will be here to talk with us about the summer learning programs for this year. So that is our list of future agenda items. And we had 2 members mention some things this evening in terms of updates. I don't know if they would translate into any kind of staff reports regarding the website. But that's something that we'll take to the agenda planning committee and see if we need to have that as a specific agenda item, a report, or if we can handle that through the superintendent's update.
President Williams, I would agree. I think in agenda planning, we can work through those 2 items, the discipline report as well as the communication of critical postings, those mandates from the State Department of Education. And we can determine whether or not, or the committee can decide whether or not that's best through an actual report or through the superintendent's report.
Any questions about future agenda items? Okay, if you have a suggestion for an agenda item, please let a member of the committee know. And that brings us down to board member comments. Do you have a preference at which end we begin? You want to start, Dr. Zitlar?
Okay. A bumblebee was very busy in my garden this morning as I grieved the loss of my great aunt, Maddie Kaufman, and my longtime friend and longtime administrator, Bob Beard, this morning. And I wonder about that bumblebee. Aerodynamically, it is impossible for the bumblebee to fly, but it does the impossible every day.
That's right.
Just like our teachers, administrators, staffers, every day. When our space program introduced them into the anti-gravity chamber, for 4 days, they probably thought it was a bit divine, but by day 4, they were all dead. They perished for lack of purpose. Aunt Maddie was a crossing guard for Washington County Public Schools for longer than most people in here have been alive, 60 years, until she retired last year. She was at Salem Avenue and then Morgansville, and it didn't matter if it was raining, snowing, hailing, or whatever. She was there greeting kids and being that first face that kids saw when they came to school. And so not only thanks to Aunt Maddie, but to all of our crossing guards, bus drivers, cafeteria workers, and administrators who greet our kids first thing and set the tone for the day. In a blink of an eye, August 29th will be here, and we'll start it all over again, so get ready. Thank you.
Well, as one person is excited about the summer to come to an end and for school to start, which I am always excited for school to start, I also would like the summer to be as long and as fun as possible. So I also wish the students and teachers and anyone out there with a little bit of time to go and have a great summer, enjoy the rest of it, because we are only a couple weeks away before teachers have to come back. So I hope you guys all have a great summer.
Thank you, Mr. Evans. Mr. Gaspard.
You two are such buzzkills for these teachers. They're just getting started to enjoy the summer, and you're welcoming them back already. Give them a break. Give them a break.
My daughter said I was mean.
Yeah, no, I have nothing at all. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gaspard. Mr. Stauffer.
Well, since she brought up the bumblebee, I once used that when I was coaching soccer as a pregame warm-up to get my team to go up against a better team that we were going to have a tough time beating. And the thing was, the bumblebee shouldn't be able to fly, but it can because it thinks it can, maybe, or something like that. So I don't know if the kids bought into it, but we beat the team, luckily, and so forth. Another thing is that our speaker in public comment tonight, the subjects or the events to which the speaker spoke do not accurately reflect the status of things in Washington County concerning the same types of issues. And I want that on the record, knowing that those things do not represent and should not be projected upon Washington County. We can't control what happens in other parts of the state, other parts of the county, other counties, other parts of the United States. We can't control that. This is Washington County. Let's concern ourselves with what's happening in Washington County. And I would advise anybody to accurately check out the Family Life Curriculum and read the minutes of the Curriculum and Instruction Committee where it was discussed.
Thank you, Mr. Stauffer. Mr. Bickford.
Nothing for me.
Mrs. Murray.
I had a chance to stop by Pangbourne Elementary School yesterday and had a nice talk with Principal Klutz. They are busy at work wrapping up the summer program, and at the same time, they're busy at work getting ready for the new school year. So I just want to say thank you to all of our staff that worked so hard this summer, helping our kids with just helping them get ready for the new school year. And I hope that they have a chance to relax a little bit before they get at it for the next school year. So thank you, staff. We really appreciate you.
Thank you, Mrs. All right. I have nothing this evening. Dr. Sabine, would you like a final word? No? Okay. Colleagues, if there's nothing else, we will stand adjourned. Thank you.